giving me this honor also. It's very much appreciated. Dr. Bloom, you've done some phenomenal things with this school. I've been back to this school twice in the last 30 plus years, and it's amazing what's going on with this school right now. It's just incredible. I want to also thank some of the folks, my darling wife of 36 years on Wednesday. I'm glad you put up with me, honey. If you notice someone smiling from ear to ear in the front row in a green dress, it's my wife. She's retiring from teaching on June 6th after 19 years in the profession, and she just can't take the grin off of her face. So congratulations. Looking forward to you joining me. I'd also like to thank my brother, Carl, and his wife, Lorraine. Not sure where I would have been without them. I went through a lot of misfortune as a young adult. 13, lost my mom. 15, lost my dad. So my brother really helped raise me, so I appreciate that very much. I also want to thank my good friend John, who's here this evening, 45 years at least and counting, and then my good friend Regina, who's best friends with my wife Joanne, is also here. I want to thank you all for attending today. It's been a great journey. I also want to congratulate the awardees. Some great resumes, much deserved awards. Great job. As I look back at my decision over 40 years ago, I was certainly torn. As I mentioned earlier, not sure where I was headed. And it came down to a choice of 3 colleges. Stevens Tech, no booze, huh? We had Virginia Tech, which was out of state and certainly a lot more expensive, and then NJIT. And at the end of the day, I chose NJIT, primarily not only for academic abilities or the performance of NJIT, but also for affordability. It was the college that I could afford to go to, and I'm so glad I got to go to NJIT. During the journey, it was just accidental that I played 4 years of baseball and got to participate in our Air Force ROTC for 4 years and really enjoyed the college life. So NJIT has certainly been the foundation for my moving forward. It has certainly been critical to my success. Also, a keynote, very much, and probably the most important part of that factor is my junior year, I met my darling wife. So that was certainly the key factor. My college journey also, I can't forget that, honey. Ironically, as I mentioned, this is only actually the 3rd time I've been back. I came back in '86 when I got inducted into the Athletic Hall of Fame, and it was a little story I want to tell about that, because at the time we had 3 boys, 2, 5, and 7, and they heard I was going into the Hall of Fame. Now, they were baseball fanatics. Okay, they just loved baseball. Even a 2-year-old was playing ball in the house back in those days. So we got here, and my middle son, the wise guy, goes to my oldest son. He goes, "Where's all the statues of Babe Ruth and Lou Gehrig?" I overheard this. I said, "Son, I'm sorry I disappointed you, but it was quite an evening. I'm hoping I'm not disappointing the crowd today, thinking I'm going to the Kennedy Center or something. But appreciate you being here." Talking about communications, that whole story of communications. Obviously, as parents, we have a 4th child, also the daughter who came later. But it reminds me of a story that when I first got transferred down to Orlando, and our executive was just traveling down to Orlando and got down to Kissimmee, and him and his wife were having a conversation about how to pronounce the town. He was saying it's spelled K-I-S-S, it's got to be Kissimmee, and she's saying no, it's Kissimmee. So finally they agreed. The next stop they make, which was a Burger King, they're going into the Burger King and they're going to ask the cashier how to pronounce the town they're in. Place their order. Finally, she leans over the counter and she goes to the gentleman, probably 18 years old, behind the counter. She goes, "How do you pronounce where we're at? And do pronounce it very slowly." He leans over and says, "Burger King." Every time I see her, I remind her of this. So what I was getting to, communications are very important. Make sure they close loops. The majority of my career after Air Force ROTC, first 4 years was spent in the military. And I was telling one of the gentlemen up here, we went to Cheyenne, Wyoming. I was a missile launch officer, Minuteman III missile launch officer. And for the first couple months, my buddy kept sending me clippings of the Yankee games. I'd say, where am I? I get clippings of the Yankee games. I know what's going on. Am I in Ukraine or where am I? So he kept sending me, finally I said, Mike, you can give it up now. Don't send me any more clippings. But they thought I was in a Never land. And coming from New Jersey, going to Cheyenne, it felt that way. So we did 4 years in Cheyenne. Then I went to work for IBM in Manassas, Virginia in the early 80s and spent the next 11 years there until we transferred to Orlando in '93. And I do appreciate these hot lamps up here. I really feel like I'm in Orlando. It's really nice and warm up here. It is warm. Much appreciated. So during that stint, over those last 31 years, I continue to look back on this 4 years in college. It gave me the opportunity to do some incredible things, working with the military and training our military. Mohammed had mentioned a simulated training program, which was a real startup. That's what got us to Orlando. But during those years in Orlando, also, we got to do some incredible things. I got to actually go in a submarine, a fast attack submarine, out into the waters. That was pretty exciting. Didn't want to stay there too long. I only had to go for a day, so that was a lot more agreeable than staying for 6 months. But I got to do that. Got to go on the USS Stennis out in San Diego, aircraft carrier. I got to go on an Apache helicopter. Did get to fly in it. It's a really funny story. I went to Fort Benning, and I get into the navigator seat, if you will. And the guy, the pilot goes, "Don't touch anything." Don't touch everything. Everything's calibrated. You touch one thing, we're going to have to recalibrate this thing. So I was like shaking in my boots getting into this helicopter. So needless to say, we didn't take off, but that was an exciting journey also. He didn't want me to do anything with that helicopter. One of the most moving experiences, quite honestly, as a military veteran and a patriot of this country, was going on 4 DDG Arleigh Burke ship commissionings. And it's nothing I've ever felt in my life as an American citizen. Because at the end of the day, when the ship was ready to be turned over to these sailors, 18, 19 years old, running up in their whites, it was just incredible. They got all on their positions on the ship, and then the 21-gun salute, and then the Star-Spangled Banner. It was great to be an American. It still is, but that was just a phenomenal experience, and so much a great experience. I got to take my father-in-law on one who was a Navy veteran during World War II, and the real thrill of that one was that John McCain was the keynote speaker, and we got pictures of my father-in-law, John, and John McCain afterwards, just the two of them. And this was before John McCain had announced his presidency in 2008. So it was a family joke. We were passing this picture around and saying, "We think John McCain's found his running mate." And it was my father-in-law, so it was a John team. And then finally, the last journey I did for Lockheed was probably one of the turning points of why I retired from Lockheed. But I was working at F-35 out in Fort Worth and spent at least 40 weeks out in Fort Worth in 2010, and thought it was about time to give it up. But that was a great experience. Certainly that airplane's getting a lot of scrutiny because of cost overruns, but it's a great experience watching that airplane be built and having a big part in the supply chain for that particular airplane. You're going to see plenty more of that as we move forward. It's been a tremendous journey, and again, I look at the foundation that I got here at NJIT. It prepared me for life, and I say that sincerely. As I mentioned, my early childhood was fraught with all kinds of challenges, but it prepared me for life. It prepared me both in the classroom, on the baseball field, in a leadership position since I was a pitcher, and also our Air Force ROTC, and then meeting my lovely wife. So thank you, Alumni Association, much appreciated. I am very truly blessed. Thank you.
Very good.